The Church at 1002 is a weekly preaching series designed to help you translate the unchanging gospel in an ever-changing world. These messages will help you navigate the challenges of life with the truth of Scripture so that you can live out the way of Jesus in the places you live, work, and play, and allow the world to experience the hope of the gospel through your life. If you find these messages helpful, then subscribe to our channel, like the message, and share it with someone else that needs to experience the unchanging gospel for their ever-changing world. Welcome to the Church at 1002. Well, Merry Christmas, Church at 1002. It's Christmas Eve, and so we decided to release the video earlier. And it's really funny to me, 1 year ago today, I had the most unusual Christmas I have ever experienced. See, my entire married life, I have never been able to spend Christmas with my family. I have always had to work on Christmas. It's kind of a part of the whole pastor gig. Somebody's got to lead the service. And so even though my family would show up to the service, my wife would come out, our kids, as we started having kids, would come out, the reality was they were there, but there was a distance because I had to lead, I had to work. And then finally at the end, after the kids had long gone to bed, I was finally able to come home and spend a little Christmas time with my family. And last year, all of that changed in a funny and unexpected way. See, I was preparing for all our Christmas services, and it was about 30 minutes before our huge kids service that we always lead. And so all of a sudden, I'm in my back office at the time, I'm preparing for the message, I'm going through the message, and I get this text from my wife, and she goes, "I've tested positive. You have to come home." It's like, she had gotten COVID. And so 30 minutes before our big kids Christmas Eve service, I had to text our kids person and be like, "I can't come, but you kind of know the message, so you've got to run with it." I had to run home. I had to stand in front of a little Christmas tree like this, and I had to start recording the Christmas message that I would then upload and send over to the church so they could lead. And in the midst of the chaos and the flurry, finally, we sit down as a family on this little old couch to live stream our favorite service, the candlelight service. And all of a sudden, Christmas slowed down. And it became this very powerful and intimate experience because I was sitting on that couch right there with my family, getting to worship for Christmas. And as I think about that Christmas, I think about the heart of the Christmas story. See, the heart of a Christmas story is a God who is always a personal God, who could sometimes easily feel distant, becomes very close to us, and very close to us for an important reason. In fact, the Christmas story that stuck out to me today that I wanted us to think about this Christmas Eve is not one of the normal Christmas stories that you would usually read. It comes from John chapter 1. And John chapter 1 doesn't share the story of a baby in a manger or shepherds or wise men. John decides to go back a little bit farther, back to the beginning. In fact, John says it like this. He says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And there was a man sent from God, whose name was John. And he came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but he came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks before me, because he was born before me.' And from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. The only God who is at the Father's side, he has made him known." Now, I love this text as a Christmas text because, Christmas, when we celebrate it, it's celebrated during one of the darkest times of the year, the winter solstice. And yet in the midst of that darkness, we celebrate with lights breaking through the darkness. We light up Christmas trees and we put lights outside. They're outside storefronts. They're outside our houses. I've got a few out here. My neighbor has way outdone me. His are amazing, but it's so incredible when you're driving down the streets around this time of year, or you're walking through a downtown area and you see the light breaking through the darkness. It's amazing because it just kind of brings this joy. And so while John is not something we normally read during Christmas, it's ripe with that Christmas imagery. But I also think it has a powerful message for us to be able to meditate on this Christmas. Because as you read through John, there's a couple things that stick out: the Word and light. And the Word would have hit two different groups of people in two totally different ways, but powerful ways. The Word would have hit the Jewish people because they would have thought back to Genesis chapter 1. They would have heard those words in the beginning, and they immediately would have thought about Genesis chapter 1 and how God created, and he created through what? Speaking, through words. And so here, all of a sudden, John is bringing all that forward, and he's saying that act of creation that you experienced, that word that created, that was Jesus. And I think that's so powerful because as a Jewish person who worshiped the Old Testament, what you realized was God was a powerful God. He was a God that moved in the midst of his people, but a God who creates on that grand scale could sometimes feel distant. But when John starts talking about the Word, and he says the Word became flesh, all of a sudden what could easily feel distant became very close. Something that could feel far off became very close. That's one of the powerful things that we learn in the Christmas story, is that we have a God who desires to be close to us. A God who knows that just in his being, it creates a distance that we can't move across. But in the midst of that, God decides to move toward us. And so he comes as close as he could possibly come, literally into the world with us. What's also really interesting about that word, was that word for the Greeks was this word that connotated this spiritual force, this power of a God, but it was a very impersonal thing. And so now all of a sudden when John reads, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and then the Word becomes flesh, all of a sudden what was very impersonal for the Greeks becomes very personal. So this impersonal idea of God becomes very personal. And I think that's so powerful because it's not just the Greeks that believe that. Oftentimes we hear people today talk about the universe or this spiritual force, and while it can be helpful for some, it becomes very impersonal. And so what John was saying to the Greek community that had this impersonal idea of God is that God is not impersonal, but Jesus has made what was impersonal very personal. This idea of the force of God all of a sudden comes down and narrows itself into the form of a man that we could see, a man that you could reach out and touch, a man that lived among us and walked among us and gave us the clearest picture of God we could ever see. That's why when you jump to John 18, this line is so powerful. It says, "No one has ever seen God, the only God who is at the Father's side. He has made him known." The Word became flesh, and because the Word became flesh, what could easily be considered distant and impersonal became close and very personal. And that's a powerful story for Christmas. But more than that, there's that image of the light. Lights that we will see all around us this Christmas season. The lights that you'll sit by on the Christmas tree. The lights that you'll see in your neighborhood as you drive up and down. The lights you'll see even a little bit past Christmas. And those lights remind us of the power of light in the darkness. And I think it's interesting because sometimes you think about dark, and dark could be an image for hopeless, right? Like the dark night of the soul is something that we talk about. But here in this image, John says that Jesus is not just a word, he's a light that breaks into the darkness of this world, a light that has an ability to bring hope. And so as we sit and we meditate on Christmas, we realize that Jesus is not just the one that makes the distant close or the impersonal personal, but Jesus is the one that brings hope into an otherwise hopeless world. And so in the midst of a world that can sometimes feel hopeless and dark, Jesus brings hope. And he puts that hope into flesh that we can experience. Because we see Jesus, we get to literally see God in human flesh. And so we get to see the way that God would love us, and it can bring us hope. We get to see the way that God would love those around him, and it gives us a picture of how we could love the people around us. See, the gift of Christmas is a God who becomes very close and very personal to bring hope into an otherwise hopeless situation. And that's the purpose of Christmas. So while John chapter 1 might not be the normal Christmas story you're used to hearing, I pray that it is a story that makes you feel closer to God, that makes God more personal for you, and that gives you a hope in what could otherwise be a very hopeless world. So Merry Christmas. And before we go, I want to give you a few questions that you can reflect on. And there's just 3 simple questions. In fact, we'll talk about these questions more in the new year. But the first question is this: what did John chapter 1 tell you about God? Or what stuck out to you in this message about God? Number 2, what did this tell you about yourself or the world around you? And then finally, number 3, how will you live this out? I want to leave you with a blessing, and I pray that you have a wonderful Christmas, and I pray that Christmas is an opportunity for you to draw closer, not just to the people around you, but to God himself. And so let me leave you with a blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with his favor and bring you his peace. Amen.